Hello and a warm welcome to the Lowell Backstage studio. Today, as you can see, I'm not in the real place. I'm actually in my home office because we want to record a session that we have on Zoom with a very, very dear guest from Genesys. We are going to talk to Charles Godfrey. Charles is a Senior Director in Experience Innovation at Genesys. And I want to know from Charles what's going on and how we can improve customer journey in the future driven by technology. Hi, Charles. Before we go into the subject matter, would you mind to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thanks, Jens. My name is Charlie Godfrey. I'm in a group called Experience Innovation, and the department is Innovation and Vision. And really what we look forward to every day and what I do every day is really evaluate journeys, evaluate experiences with our customers to help them understand opportunities where they can leverage technology to improve experience, not just for customers, but for employees as well. And so, as you know, with the rate that technology is improving and the AI technology is coming in, the world is changing every day. So every day is a new and exciting day. Yeah, and it thrills me to be here with you, Jens.
Well, that's definitely my pleasure, to be very honest, because I'm a very curious person. Always been, ever will be, I'm afraid. And so what I really want to know and want to learn is about how technology and customer experience is making a good match. And probably also, you know, lately we're talking a lot about artificial intelligence, mm-hmm. and we're talking a lot about big data. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as I'm German, and you probably heard the term German Angst, we are very cautious people, obviously. And there is something we call GDPR. So I'd be interested, first of all, what does it mean to use big data in a customer experience?
Yeah, great question. And you're right, data is the fuel of the future, right? But I think what's interesting, Jens, and so here's my experience innovation hat coming on. So where I like to start, you went right to AI, you went right to big data, you went right to all that stuff that's cool. And we as technologists, we all gravitate toward that. But what I'm encouraging people to do is take a pause and let's turn it around. Let's actually think about people first. So let me tell you this story. We, as a company mission statement, say we are focused on delivering the power of empathy to every experience. And when I am in a room of technologists, they roll their eyes and they're like, oh my God, this is a marketing pitch. This has nothing to do with technology or me or business. And then I ask for a little patience and say, let's walk through this for a second. If I'm being empathetic with you in this conversation, there are some key things I'm going to do to make that happen. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to listen. Who are you? Where have you been? I'm going to use my brain and my understanding to understand and predict what you need. How can I help you? I'm going to take an action and try to provide you some assistance in this conversation. And then hopefully I'm going to gauge the success of that, learn and improve. And so at the heart of that, you as a participant, hopefully feel heard, you feel understood, and you feel satisfied with the experience. And probably are looking forward to the next conversation.
Charlie, I don't want to rush anything, and I don't want to interrupt you, although I have, obviously. But when you talk about empathy, to me, that is like, you know, taking someone else's perspective, position, and understand what they think and what they feel. But how can that how is that related to data?
Hmm. So I love that, Jens. That's perfect. So think about that. That's you and me doing this, right? How can we do that at scale? How can we scale that, right? How can we gain another person's perspective by using what I call these empathy pillars? We can listen at scale with data. We can use AI to transform that data into understanding and prediction of the right actions. We can use, connection channels, platforms to take action, inbound and outbound. And then we can have feedback loops and, hey, did you like this experience or not? And continually, or even journey analytics to understand the paths to success and the points of friction to continually improve and optimize. And so for me, even though that first bit was like, this is totally two different things. We're talking about empathy, right? We're talking about, but it's understanding the other person's perspective. And from my perspective, I say, yes, it is. Now you and I can't be on every phone call or answering every email or monitoring everything, but technology can. Technology can listen at scale. Technology can, classify and categorize intent and have rules to predict the right action, take that action and then get a thumbs up or thumbs down to say it should be happening again. And so if we think about it that way, and I'm going to check, that's where I see this incredible connection of this concept of empathy in action and delivering empathy to every interaction and how technology can deliver it at scale. What do you think about that?
Well, that sounds super interesting. And again, being a German, a little bit frightening, because for me, the next obvious question is, so do you understand me as a person? Is it Jens that you watch? Or is it maybe just my data and you don't even know who the person is behind these data?
That's a great point. So, and that gets us back to our GDPR thing a little bit. And so there's a few different layers of this. Like if you think about it, there are identities. Any platform should be doing all types of encryption. And the way I described it to someone, like whenever we visit a website, at least for me, I've got a cookie. Will you accept my cookie? Okay. Yeah, I will. Now that cookie is some GUID thing that's like this, and I'm an unauthenticated user. You don't know who I am, but you know this object of what I am. And you know what this object is doing on the website. And so that data is listening at a certain level. Even though you don't know it's Charlie, you don't know I live in the United States, you don't know anything about me, but you know this object. Let's really take it out. It's an object. We've classified it so we know it's not a crawling bot or whatever, right? So it is a human object maybe, but it's doing things on my website. Now I can track that, and it happens all the time. And I can learn from that. I can listen, and I can actually understand this object, who I know behind the scenes is Jens, has paused at a key moment in this journey. I'm on a journey, but I'm stopped. I could understand there's hesitation and need there, predict the action of engaging with a bot. Hi, object. Do you need help at this location? Yeah, I do. Terrific. Would you like to give me some more information? Would you like to speak to someone? Would you like to? On and on and on. And so we haven't touched Jens at all. But we've increased empathy on that experience exponentially.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing that makes me wonder a little bit. So let's try to make it in an example, okay? Let's just imagine for a second I'm a customer of Lowell.
Yeah.
And I go to Lowell's webpage because I have maybe some business that needs to be executed on that page. But first of all, I want to look around because I'm not really sure if I want to use that payment portal or whatever it is. And next time I have the feeling I should maybe take care about the issues that I have to solve, but I go back on my tablet.
Mhm.
So the object can't be the same, right? First time it was a laptop, second time it was a tablet. So how do you,
Session.
okay. So how do you put that together?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a couple little wrinkles there that I would maybe test. So if I'm a customer of Lowell, am I logged in? Right? Am I logged in on the web? Am I logged in on my tablet? Therefore, I do have a common key, a common identity, a recognized thing. And I think when it comes down to data, when people ask me about privacy and data, I always go back to the people perspective of, are we marketing the value of participation? So a lot of times, will you share your information? Will you not share? Well, I want to retract, right? GDPR, I have to be able to say, no, don't keep my information. But what are we doing to promote? It might be in your best interest to participate. How would you like to have a more seamless experience with Lowell? This is where we've almost abused the outbound thing, where it's just, I'm being pummeled with messages that I don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
But how could we provide status on the relationship? Things like that weren't necessarily sales motions that are incredibly valuable. I think at the end of the day, somebody reaching out to a company usually isn't reaching out because they really want to. They really probably are reaching out because they have to for some reason. And you know what that's doing? It's taking them away from the life that they want to participate in. So if I was to say to you as a positioning person, how do we tell that customer? How do we share the value of this relationship, that we value this customer? How do we promote the fact that participation has value and real value, so you can get back to your day and your life and your kids? That's where I think I don't see as many actions around the promotion of participation that would actually help us with this real problem of what happens when somebody doesn't participate. Obviously, like lack of participation handcuffs us a little bit on how much we can stitch together and how a deep of a resolution of the picture I have on you, Jens. And with that, right there, I think what I share with folks is I ask them, how are we positioning participation? Because there should be a win-win there. And, even if it's some kind of reward system, it's so much of a value to a company to be able to do this operationally efficient, right? From a business and relationship, it keeps it top of mind. There's a lot of reasons this is great. And so are we sharing that value with our customers? That's a question I think will need to be answered in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting point, I think, because we had an event lately, and one of the speakers was talking about something that she called liquid persona. That actually says you can't cluster like we did in the past, because the cluster of it's always not really exact. So what you have to find out is what the person you're in touch with in that very moment might want. And that is still a little bit what makes me wonder, right? Because that looks like kind of magic. So how does it work? How do you create a customer journey based on only the knowledge of, okay, the person has logged in on a tablet. The person is probably located, I don't know, in the Western Hemisphere, and the person is obviously speaking German.
Yeah.
So that's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
And how does it continue from there?
And I love this, Jens, because I don't think it is an evolving thing in that journey. It's a classification in real time, the way I see it, right? It's like, I'm going to have this picture of 3 data points on Jens. That's all I know. Now I can, to your point, I love the word you said, probably. right? Statistics, probability, all plays a role in this. If we're using big data to look at journeys at scale, there are common flows, right? There's no way for us, you and I, to grab those out of millions of experiences, but systems certainly can. So we use journey analytics to give us the insights on the probably. How probably is it? Regardless of where this person is, when they go here, the next step is going to be here and the next step is going to be here. And then they take that next step or they don't. Then, for us, we think about, oh my God, the math associated with this, every little variation. Oh my God, there's no way anyone would be able to do this. And you're right. Anyone can't do it. But big data AI systems can do a pretty good job getting getting close. And we don't have to get to the granularity that we see on this screen. We can get to a certain level of granularity and then have the conversation even with a bot. Hi, I see you're here. Are you doing something? Just give me a little bit more information. Yes, I am doing that. Terrific. My granularity and resolution just got a little bit clearer, right? I still don't know Jens yet, but I'm moving down, right? And the bot can, take those intents and then realize I'm on a different journey. I'm on a different path. But it's that systematic use of data in real time and historical models of probably that puts us in a realm that we haven't been before. Thoughts about that, Jens?
Absolutely. Because now, what now gets to me is if you're getting all these data in real time, and you want to explore these data and make use of them in another step, in another iteration, you need to store them, right? At least for a specific amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do that in every single step of our e-commerce or our interaction of in our Lowell webpage, for example,
yeah,
doesn't that demand a massive amount of storage?
It's interesting. So you can tune, you process it and you create these models. And then if something follows the existing model, it just becomes a reinforcement of a line, right? If you think about sand key diagrams and things like that, there's point A, point C, this, and a lot of them will follow. I remember that if you hadn't seen the documentary on Cambridge Analytica, you're right, the big data, classic big data, gone bad. They really had archetypes. And, in that project, there were only like 28 different archetypes. Don't quote me on the number, but it wasn't huge.
Mm-hmm.
And think about that, right? Millions and millions and millions. So when you think about storage, you're really storing at the 28 archetypes level, not the millions. So once you start to put these into patterns, then it becomes a little different. It depends, though, I will say, on, what analysis you're doing, right? If you want to surface to a representative Jens experience, Jens history with the company, obviously you need a different level of storage for that picture. So it depends on the picture you're painting, I think, as far as the storage capability. But that's kind of where you could do an awful lot of analysis on billions and billions of records without having enormous storage if you're looking at it from a behavioral perspective.
So in my words, I try to get my head around it, right? Actually, I grew up as a journalist, so to speak, in my business life. And so I'm someone who's focusing on words and not so much on numbers. Whenever it gets to numbers, I have my issues. So, however, let me try to get my head around it. So what you're telling me is that all the processes that are going on when we interact as a person with a machine, what we do is we try to build models And the rest of the data can then be just deleted because you don't need it. Once you have a model, you can delete the rest. And what happens then the next time is if there is a new information that makes sense to add to that model, you do that, but forget about the rest. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's a good way to summarize it, Jens. Yeah. And that first scenario that we talked about of engaging with you in real time as an unauthenticated user, that kept no data at all, right? So there are times when we look at it that we only keep data for the session. Now, you can determine what that session is, whether it's just the digital property. Is it the digital property extending to the bot? Is it the digital property extending to a live resource? That could be a session. You keep it, you flag it as a ABQ journey, and you put it away, right? And then the next person comes through and it's an ACZ journey, and you put that away, right? That's one technique.
So then there's obviously there's a next question. Just let's assume for a second that me, Jens, knows that I have business with Lowell for a couple of weeks or month.
Yeah.
So maybe I want you to keep my information so it's easier for us to interact the next time. So it's my decision, obviously, so that has nothing to do with GDPR because obviously I consent, it's my free will.
Yes.
But would it be correct to say in that moment when you create a profile of that Jens who has allowed to do that, is still building on these, 28 archetypes, and there's only so much information added that you can identify me as Jens?
I think, Jens, it goes back to, it depends on what picture we want to paint. If we want the next time you come in as a participant, and it goes back to that consent, right? You have consented. You know what? I understand the value of participation. And I expect, because of that, you're going to know who I am when I call in. You're going to know where I've been. You're going to know what's going on. That's my expectation. That's the promise. And to do that, I do need to keep more data about you so that I can surface it to a representative to say, this is Jens, this is where he's been, this is what his business is today, right? Maybe this is the opportunity to expand the relationship, make him aware. That's fine, right? But that's where it depends on the question and the problem we're solving. If we're solving the high level, we need to improve digital engagement. We need to improve, customer satisfaction in our automated assistants. That is more of a path analysis. How many people are failing out of this? How many archetypes? What types of people are failing out of this? Is there a demographic profile or something like that attributes that match that would cause people to fall out of a mobile application, for example? I don't need Jens for that. Jens calls in and I want to give Jens a white glove treatment and maybe send him to the top of the queue based on his value and all those things. Then I need to know Jens. And that's where the promise of consent and promise of participation has value.
So that's basically, you don't have to know me, you only have to understand my needs and my demand.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And for that, you don't even need my name. Absolutely.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
And we can do a lot of improvement based on that, right, Jens? I mean, if you weren't aware of what I call the, what we talked about in real time, the experience of me, one person in real time. But how can we leverage technology to understand the experience of a million needs? That's where this comes in. So with two different pictures, two different motions, but we're essentially doing those empathy pillars. We're listening, we're understanding and predicting, and we're taking action, right? In real time and, steering the ship and the direction of the experience. That's why I start with those empathy pillars. Everybody rolls their eyes. But then when we get down to the meat, it comes back to that's what we're doing at scale.